Can you believe it all started in 1961 when a team of flawed, bickering, but deeply human superheroes changed everything? Meet the Fantastic Four, Marvel's first family. Before Spider Man, before the Avengers, it was Reed Richards, Sue Storm, Johnny Storm, and Ben Grimm who pioneered the Marvel Age of Heroes. And over the next 6 decades, they would rise, fall, vanish, and return across comics, cartoons, and some, let's say, challenging films. But in 2025, they're finally coming home to Marvel and to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But to understand why this matters, we have to go back, way back, to when it all happened. Let's travel back to 1961. Stan Lee is ready to quit the world of comics. Jack Kirby is drawing science fiction monsters on forgettable pulp pages, and DC's Justice League is taking over the world. And Marvel's publisher wants to get in on the craze. Marvel had been a struggling franchise and a struggling organization, and DC was the mighty heroes. They were seen as the big wigs in the world of comics. This was Stan Lee's last shot. But instead of clean cut heroes with capes, he and Jack Kirby create something different, something unique. A group of astronauts that had gone into space and come back with extraordinary powers. Powers that would come from cosmic rays. But they don't wear masks, they don't hide their identity. They argue, they panic, they fight, they have human qualities. They're not some superhero that we have been seeing with DC. They're something unique. They have human characteristics. They have flaws. They're a family. Fantastic Four #1 hits newsstands in November of 1961. Reed Richards becomes Mr. Fantastic, a superhero genius who can stretch his body like rubber. Sue Storm was known as the Invisible Girl, who could turn invisible and later develops powers like force fields. Johnny Storm, the Human Torch, and probably most 10-year-olds' favorite superhero if you grew up in the 80s or 90s. He was a hot-headed teenager who literally lights up and flies away. And Ben Grimm, the Thing, a tragic figure trapped in a rock-like form, famous for shouting, "It's clobbering time." This was a new comic. This was an instant hit. This was the rebirth of Marvel Comics. What made the Fantastic Four so unique and relatable was the fact they weren't just superheroes, they were characters. They lived in the real New York City and they dealt with fame, jealousy, trauma, and love. Within the first 100 issues, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby introduced a who's who of Marvel icons, including Doctor Doom, Galactus, Silver Surfer, the Skrulls, and even the Black Panther, the first black superhero in mainstream American comics. Their base, the Baxter Building, an iconic skyscraper in the heart of Manhattan. In the late 60s, Sue and Reed would get married, creating a unique dynamic for the Marvel Comics. This would also be seen as the blueprint for all future Marvel Comics interactions and crossovers. They were creating a universe based off this Fantastic Four family. Throughout the late 60s, 70s, and 80s, the family would stay popular, developing their character traits even further. At this time, it was decided to rename Sue Storm into the Invisible Woman instead of the Invisible Girl. This development overall created more unique storylines for the characters, more interactions, and more crossovers. But by the 90s, Marvel was struggling as a company overall. Though they had some popular characters, the Fantastic Four was no longer seen as the darling. Characters like Spider-Man and the X-Men, including Wolverine and Cyclops, were the ones who were popular. They were the ones kids wanted to be, the ones that kids wanted to see on TV. Even though all of this, there had been talks of a Fantastic Four movie that would be coming out in the 90s. This came from a German production group that met with Stan Lee in Los Angeles to purchase the movie rights for the Fantastic Four. There were many discussions, and it was decided that they would go ahead creating this movie. However, the movie would never come. There are pirated copies out there, but it would never hit theaters and would cost over $1 million to create. It was seen as a total flop, and Marvel got nervous. In the early 2000s, with a struggling Marvel, it was decided to try to bring the Fantastic Four back to life and reinvigorate them with new characters new potential, and new stories. This is when movies came in. 20th Century Fox would partner with Marvel in 2005 for a reboot of the movie franchise. After the unsuccessful movie that came out in the 90s, well, not officially come out in the 90s, the Fox team decided to create something more unique, goofy, bright, and something that hadn't been seen before, specifically for characters that weren't as beloved as other Marvel characters. Well, 20th Century Fox had some success with this film. They would even have a sequel, Rise of the Silver Surfer, which introduced Galactus. But fans were not that impressed, specifically comic book fans. They wanted more of a story, they wanted a connection. This was the first family in Marvel. They had so much potential, but 20th Century Fox was not using them correctly, even though it had a star studded cast like Chris Evans, who would go on to be Captain America in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and Jessica Alba playing the Invisible Woman. This franchise had so much potential, but it would be seen as a failure of Fox. Though the characters were still beloved, merchandising, marketing, and comic book sales were steeply decreasing for these characters. So in 2015, it was decided maybe try again for Fox and reboot the franchise. They would try with stars like Michael B. Jordan, Miles Teller, and Kate Mara as the superstars leading the way for the Fantastic Four. Well, let's just say this was not impressive, and many consider this to be another Fox flop at the end of their Marvel era. And a lot of people were intrigued about what would happen to these characters after this flop. Would they reboot the franchise? Would Disney, who would be acquiring Marvel and created the cinematic universe, create something more unique? Would they get the rights to the Fantastic Four? And would they bring them to life once again and connect them to the cinematic universe? Well, it would be decided Disney and Marvel would take that opportunity after they would acquire Fox. That moment in 2019 would change everything. At San Diego Comic Con, Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige would announce a Fantastic Four movie, and everyone would go nuts because they knew finally the Fantastic Four would get the love that they deserved. With people like Pedro Pascal and Vanessa Kirby starring in the film, it's no doubt going to be more than just an origin story. It's going to be something unique, something creative, and something that connects the rest of the cinematic universe. And people were expecting Doctor Doom, Galactus, and other big name villains to appear. The villains that had been missing from the Marvel Cinematic Universe because Disney didn't have the rights to the Fox movies. Well, it's all going to change now. They weren't just heroes, they were Marvel's first family, and they're coming to the big screen once again. And with the power of Disney behind them, there's no doubt that this is going to be something different, something unique, but most importantly, a moneymaker. Disney is a merchandising and marketing entity. They're a powerhouse. They know how to sell something that works. There is no company that knows how to milk a cash cow better than Disney, and they see potential in this. And there's good reason for that. The characters have always been beloved. They've always been important to the Marvel universe, and now they're finally coming home. They're coming into the cinematic universe, which many are saying is going to be the reboot of the Marvel Cinematic Universe to what it once was. Many people have been upset with the recent Marvel movies in the past 4 or 5 years, and they want something new. They want something unique. They want to bring the world back together. And this is where Disney and Marvel can do this. Through things like merchandising and marketing, there's no doubt that this is going to be a powerhouse movie. Many are saying this is going to be the most successful Marvel movie in recent years, and people are excited. But not only that, people are questioning whether or not these characters will expand further, not just in merchandise that we're expected to see all around, but will they be appearing in the theme parks? Will they continue to grow? What are your thoughts? Are you excited for the new movie? Are you excited to reboot the Fantastic Four? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.